So there's this one DreamWorks movie franchise that you may have heard of before. It's called Shrek. I love the Shrek movies. Not only are they very witty and clever, especially how they adapt and subvert classic fairy tale stories into their movies, but they also have a charming cast of characters, great messages for both adults and kids, and they're just in general some of the most beloved animated movies in the past few decades. And with Puss in Boots: The Last Wish being a huge success, and the confirmation that Shrek 5 is onward in development, I thought it would be fun to rank all the Shrek movies from the worst to the best, including the four mainline Shrek movies and the two Puss in Boots spin-off movies. Let's get started. Yes, Shrek the Third, the Shrek movie that everyone claims to be the worst in the franchise, and honestly, it's not even hard to see why. This is by far the least funny out of all the Shrek movies. There is two jokes that made me laugh, but literally that's it. Otherwise, the comedic timing is awful, and when it's not that, the joke is just straight up unfunny. The characters also really stink in this movie. Overall, I like the idea of Shrek's new conflict of facing upcoming responsibilities he doesn't feel ready for, like learning he's going to be a father and also taking the place as king of Far, Far Away. That actually seems like a natural progression to take his journey for this franchise, but the execution for these ideas is abysmal. For instance, why is he taking a journey to look for a random high school student voiced by Justin Timberlake to be the next king? I mean, I know why. King Harold told Shrek about this before he died, but Shrek, seriously, do you think this is really the best solution to your problem? Speaking of whom, Justin Timberlake's vocal performance is boring, and the writing for his character is honestly even worse as it's so generic. And not only do Shrek and Justin Timberlake high schooler boys stink, but all of the side characters and the antagonists are really bad as well. Prince Charming being the antagonist makes sense story-wise based on the events from Shrek 2, but his writing is so bad. He's treated like such a joke and doesn't even feel mildly threatening until the end of the climax, and even then you don't even feel scared or threatened by him in the slightest. His plan is also extremely dumb. His plan is to kill Shrek in front of everyone in a musical performance because that totally 100% makes sense. Fiona is completely sidelined in a narrative and has nothing to do. Donkey and Puss, I guess, are not bad because I like those characters, but they're given nothing to do narrative wise. And they don't even get the chance to be funny because, once again, the humor is really bad in this movie. That's just this entire movie. It has useless characters and generic plot lines that are both due to the fact of how poorly written they are, and this just doesn't do any justice to the Shrek franchise. It's kind of sad, really, because there's a few really good ideas, but it's just the execution that just ruins them. Now, when I do my Shrek marathons in the future, I never want to watch this movie, and I just generally just don't want to watch this movie ever again, so I won't. Okay then, that's the only bad Shrek movie out of the way, so let's talk about the not bad Shrek movies. Puss in Boots 1 is a decent movie. I like it overall, but I feel like I should be liking this movie more than I actually do. Puss is a solid protagonist. Humpty Dumpty and Kitty Softpaws are fun side characters, and I like the concept of Shrek's universe interpretation of the Jack and the Beanstalk story. The movie is also certainly entertaining and has solid elements, but I don't quite call it a good movie. Jack and Jill are fun enough villains, but they kind of feel like they didn't have as much to do as they could have. For being some of the antagonists of this movie, they're shockingly pretty forgettable overall in the entire Shrek series. In fact, a lot of side characters feel pretty forgettable, like this one orphanage mother or the chief guard guy. And just in general, there's not really any moments in this movie that really stick out in the overall franchise. Everything is fine, just nothing outstanding, and I think that's the main issue with it and why it's so low on this list for me. While nothing here is awful like Shrek the Third, there's nothing that leads up to the top tier elements or moments like some of the best Shrek movies. This is something that the second Puss in Boots handled a lot better, as it had something to say, and there's plenty of characters and moments in that movie that feel amazing. But we'll talk about that movie when we get to that movie. Long story short, Puss in Boots is a decent movie, just nothing amazing. Yes, the original Shrek, one of the most classical animated movies of all time. Even if you've never seen these movies, you still get a good idea of who Shrek is, or have at least heard of him. This franchise is just that popular, and it all started with this movie right here. I won't spend too much time on this, as everyone on the internet who's seen this movie has already given their opinions on Shrek and why it's a great movie. It's really funny, it has great characters, a great message of Shrek finding love and friendship on his journey even though he thought he would never find those things ever in his life, and the movie just overall has a fun, clever, hilarious, and really touching story. The voice cast here is also completely perfect. From Mike Myers as Shrek, to Cameron Diaz as Fiona, to Eddie Murphy as Donkey, to John Lithgow as Farquaad. The line deliveries are so great, and you can tell the voice actors had a blast making this movie. Anyways, Shrek is amazing, and definitely one of the most iconic animated movies of all time. Shrek Forever After is pretty great. I'm honestly shocked of how much I liked it. Sure, it's not nearly as funny as the first two Shrek movies, and I kinda do feel like that hurts it a little bit since the Shrek franchise is wildly known for its comedy. But it's honestly not a major issue, as there's still a few good jokes in this movie, and it also has a really strong emotional core, mainly for Shrek's arc. His arc about his dilemma with his old life and new life, and learning to appreciate his new life, is really strong and written so well. This leads to some really emotional scenes as well, like Shrek and Fiona's dialogue right after the climax and at the very end of the movie. I also really like the concept for this movie about an alternate and apocalyptic world of what would have happened if Shrek didn't exist, and Shrek himself finding his way out of that world to get back to his real one. It's a really cool concept for this story, and I like how it takes the characters from the Shrek franchise and it subverts their traits. I also really enjoyed Rumpelstiltskin. He's such a fun antagonist, and him being responsible for this alternate and apocalyptic world poses a challenge larger than Shrek has ever encountered before. Overall, I love this movie. After the horrendous mess from Shrek the Third, this was definitely a step in the right direction. Obviously, this isn't anymore the Shrek movie where Shrek's arc comes to an end, as Shrek 5 is now going to be a thing. But even with that, I still love this movie regardless. At this point, the fact that I ranked this movie so high should not be a surprise. I remember when I first heard the trailer for this movie dropping and thinking to myself, oh, they're doing another Puss in Boots movie with a different animation style. That's cool, I guess. I don't know, I just really wasn't excited when I first heard about it. The first Puss in Boots movie was pretty decent, but nothing special. But then the internet and everyone around me who had seen it were talking about how good it was. So I watched it, and yep, it's just as good as everyone says it is. Everything about this movie just feels so top tier. Puss has a really great arc about letting go of his idea of 9 lives, letting him to be a legend he was, and learning the value and importance of having one life. It's really compelling and emotional, and it's even better when you show him and connecting with Perito and reconnecting with Kitty Softpaws. Softpaws also had a really nice arc as well, about learning to open up and trust people, while still remaining a really fun character to go along on this journey. And Perito is a really good companion as well. Not only is he one of the funniest characters in the movie, but he also serves as a nice supportive character as he helps teach Puss the lessons that Puss learns in the movie. And it's overall just nice to have an overly optimistic character like Perito to be alongside two serious characters like Puss and Kitty. It's a really great dynamic. And yeah, not only are the protagonists great, but the villains are also incredibly good as well. Goldilocks and the Three Bears are obviously nice subversions of their fairy tale counterparts. Not only are they this fun and threatening crime family, but they also have a really nice family dynamic and have a really nice emotional arc to add on to it. Big Jack Horner is also a really fun villain as well. He's such a fun and hilarious antagonist, and he's easily the character that made me laugh the most during the entire movie. And, of course, the best villain in the movie, Death. This is one of the most terrifying, yet still one of my favorite villains in animated movie history. He's by far the character that kept me on the edge of my seat the most, and also the character who gave me the most anxiety and fear while watching the movie. So that was nice. Overall, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish slaps, and easily one of the best animated movies to come out in recent years. If you haven't watched it yet, please give this movie a watch. I swear you won't be disappointed. Shrek 2 is number 1. Yeah, I know, how original. Until Puss in Boots: The Last Wish came out, this was often considered to be the best Shrek film, and it's not even hard to understand why. Everything about this movie is near perfection. The humor, the themes, the action, and especially the character arcs. Shrek and Fiona's character arc especially is great and well developed, especially Shrek's side of it, as it's really compelling. His arc evokes strong themes about societal expectations and self-acceptance, and it's really emotional, especially when he gets to the end of the movie. Even other arcs like King Harold's arc are great, as he's part of Shrek's conflict of societal expectations. He goes from someone reluctant on the idea of Shrek being Fiona's love to being someone who accepts Shrek for who he is, and see how much Shrek and Fiona's relationship mean to each other, to the point where he literally turns on the villain of the story, making him definitely have one of the most satisfying arcs in the entire Shrek franchise. Speaking of which, Fairy Godmother is one of the best villains in any DreamWorks movie. She serves as a major threat to Shrek and Fiona's relationship and a key point in invoking Shrek's insecurities. On top of those things, the action is a lot of fun. There's a lot of funny jokes, and it's just such a fun movie to watch. I can go on for an entire day explaining how this is one of the best animated movies of all time, but I think you all get the gist by now. Overall, Shrek 2 is a banger that I love rewatching again and again.